Exercises from the first injury prevention workshop, the stuff that we did over in this area, both wrist and also just the prehabs greatest hits that I did with everybody. We're going to start with the wrist stuff. So the focus was our big slow negatives, focusing on that eccentric contraction. You want to make sure that your elbow is set up so it doesn't come off of the actual box, slowly lowering down, coming back up, using a weight that's challenging. Making sure you get the wrist flexors as well. Whole time that you're set up here, you want to make sure you're not like hashtag rest posture is your best posture, but not in this scenario. So flexors, extensors, and then moving on to pronation and supination. Using one of these weights is best, so you can actually adjust what's on the end. Otherwise, working with this, you can really only do eccentrics into pronation. You can't actually really do it in the opposite direction. So you set up with this guy, 90 degrees, slowly falls down to 90 degrees, or even a bit further, comes back up to that neutral position, coming down to the opposite side, slowly add weight over time. So as soon as you want to increase the weight on top of those a little bit, to make it a little bit more efficient as well, once you're at a position where you feel like you can start loading a little bit more intensely, you can use one of these, slowly lowering down into eccentric flexion, and then obviously flipping over to do your extensors as well. So that's kind of all of the wrist stuff. There is one more piece from the elbow. One of the guys that was with us was working with sort of post-dislocation stuff in the elbow. This was the dream exercise. Sitting up, eccentric tricep stuff. So slowly lowering back. The reason why we use this as opposed to slowly lowering down into bicep curls when you're standing is this takes a little bit more pressure off the joint than on the opposite side. So this will help you regain that flexion range. And if we regain one range, generally we start to regain the other. Wrist stuff complete. So lower back stuff, we had 3 separate exercises kind of working both into lumbar flexion and lumbar extension. Number 1 was that banded cat-cow. Create tension through the band, have it coming just over the top of the hip bone. Should be lined up sort of like mid-lower back. Come forwards into that half sort of cat-cow position. And then you want to roll the hips underneath to work into that lumbar flexion. This is more of a mobilization. It will strengthen a little bit because it's a bit challenging, but really this is going to be one to open up into that flexion, then to work into that control. We use dead bugs. I use a little pillow because it's really uncomfortable for my head to be back. Feet up off the ground, hands up towards the roof. There's a $100 bill in between your back and the ground and it's a windy day, so you need to keep that push into the floor. Either limb comes down, opposite sides, back up to center, either limb, back up to center. Constantly keeping that lower back pushed down into the ground as much as you can. Then to work the opposite direction, our bread offerings. So kneeling, little weight guy, pitching forwards at 45. Activate that lower back by bringing the hips back, tall through the torso. Bread, you want to offer up the bread, activates the lower back, and then you take it back. The key is this lean. If you do it here, it's just a deltoid exercise. If you do it here, that weight coming away from you creates a stability challenge in the lower back. Split squats, but using them in a way that's going to work the quads as well as develop a bit of mobility into the ankle and help with protecting that ACL. Normally we'd be in this 90-90 position, but if we shorten it up, it becomes way more quad dominant. Coming straight up, pressing straight down, weights can go in the hands, weights can go on the back, nice and easy. Then we've got our hamstring walk. So feet up towards the butt, hands either side, lifting hips up towards the roof, front part of the toes up off the ground, slowly walking the heels away from you. The further away they get, the more hamstring dominant will become. And then on your return, always making sure you're lifting those hips as much as possible. If you want to increase the load on this, chuck a weight onto the belly. Easy.
Sweet, so now we'll get on to what we're doing over onto the rig. I'm just going to use the hangboard because it's nice and pretty lighting. We're just going to go through that dead hang and those scapular pull-ups. So with the dead hang, literally just falling into the shoulders, letting them stretch out, feel that stretch through the front of the actual shoulder. Work your way up to a minute on each hang. It's nice and easy. You're on a bar or on these jogs, so your fingers won't wear out too quickly. Once you start getting into scapular pull-ups, literally just lifting up from the scap. Keeping those arms straight. And then when you're getting good at those two, you can eventually get onto one arm stuff. Just take it easy. If you suck at it, do it lots as a workout. If you're really good at it, use it actually as a warm-up. So warming up with band stuff, so getting that whole rotator cuff, all those four muscles warmed up nice and easy. Just grab yourself a band, adjust to where you need it. You don't need to be super, super tight. You want just enough for everything to be active, and then just making small circles at about 45 degrees out in front of you. So 90, 90, 45. Do maybe 10 or so in one direction, 10 or so in the other direction. Again, if you really suck at that, do it all the time. If you're good at it, do it before you go climbing, warm up with that whole shoulder. The other one is those wall angels, using the band purely as just to activate that shoulder. So we're not getting it really tight. The band's not doing the exercise. We're just activating everything with the band. Then we're just pulling down, coming all the way up. So just making sure our shoulders can access that range. Nice and easy. Sweet. So hangboarding, again, just a reminder, we're always working that open hand. So for me, I want to work on these grips. I'm pretty bad at small edges. So for example, that is actually really, really hard for me to hold. So we get our trusty little pulley, loop. You could maybe wear a harness and you just loop it onto yourself. At the moment I have 7.5 kilo thread right there. So pull through. Oh. Struggle getting your foot through there, as is tradition. And then sitting in there, and I can hold that fairly comfortably. And my elbows are nice and bent. I'm not fully straight. My shoulders aren't at my ears. Active shoulders, active elbows. So, same thing, exact same thing applies for whenever we're doing slopers. Working those, we'll do these ones. So front twos, if you're doing your back fingers. Front three. Just cycling through, finding out what you suck at, making it easier so you don't suck at it as much, and then working your way up.